Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited to be joined by Amy Lundy, and we're going to be previewing the up-and-coming US Open tournament. We're going to go into the WTA and ATP side, and I'm really looking forward to getting your thoughts, Amy. How are you doing?
Really well. Super excited for the start of this tournament. I live in the New York area and it is terrible weather today, but apparently some super nice, very temperate weather is coming, like 80s, partly cloudy, which is like right in the wheelhouse. So I'm hoping that we have a really good run of good weather and that like cramping and heat and all that is not an issue.
Yeah, no, for sure. Are you going actually? By the way, I didn't ask. Are you
Oh
going?
yeah, I'll go down there many
Yeah,
times. So it's just a train ride and a subway ride for me, so it's super easy.
amazing. Are you going to go as a fan and/or press, or what, how are you going to go? What capacity? Ah,
Um, no, I'm not going to go as press this year, and I will go at least one day as a fan, and then through some coaching contacts that I have, I will go as guest of the player a couple of days. I'm
oh,
not
are
going to
we
tell
allowed
you
to know
which
which?
way.
Okay, okay, we don't know.
No,
Okay,
no.
that's
Actually, I
fine.
don't know. I don't know yet, but
You have that many contacts, Amy. You could just decide which player you want to choose to go with. Well, maybe just it's fine. You don't have to say it on here, but you can message me when you know.
okay.
I'm just interested. I'll keep it
Okay.
to myself. Right. Should we start off then with the WTA side, because I feel like we were talking about it before, and personally, anyway, I feel like there's a lot to talk about. I feel like it's a lot more open on paper anyway than the men's side. Um, the first topic that I wanted to discuss was the balls, that they've changed them, so the heavy duty Wilson balls. And I was saying to you before that Iga Swiatek kept on, and also Sabalenka, they were saying, or have said in prior years, that they didn't really like I think they were called normal duty, or I think, or medium duty,
Regular
which were,
duty.
or regular duty. One of them, regular
So
duty.
regular.
It's so
Yeah.
exactly. And they were saying, look, we, like, back in the day, they could understand why the women used to play with those balls in the US Open, because maybe they weren't quite as strong. But nowadays, Swiatek was saying that, we are physically more than capable of being able to use the same balls as the men, understandably. And we feel like, at the moment, the balls that we're using, we feel like we can't control them as well. So they have made the switch. What are your thoughts? One, on, like, do you agree, like, are you happy they made the switch? Do you think it makes any difference? And what types of players do you think you'll favor?
I do think it will make a minor difference, but it ends up being a big difference because at the super, super elite levels, very minute changes in condition, surface, balls, you name it, can equate to a big difference because they're so close in level. So it wasn't last year, it was a year before that when Medvedev actually won. I was out at the practice courts and Medvedev was practicing and he finished and there were a bunch of balls on the court. And the next team came in to take that court and I happen to know the coach of that team. And I said, "Do you mind if I scoop up some of these balls and take them home?" He said, "Of course, I was just going to give them away anyway." So, and it's really cool to see some balls that have been practiced with by an ATP player because they've been abused. Okay, they are roughed up. And they also are like black and blue because the paint jobs that the players have on their rackets have glommed off onto the balls. So they look like they've been bruised and abused. But it was interesting because he happened to have been practicing with both kinds of balls. That was just what was available, and they don't really care when they're practicing as much. Some of them don't. So I have like about a dozen of the balls, and I can tell the difference between the extra duty and the regular duty. And the balls that the women were playing with, it's like a close shave. It's like there's almost no fuzz on them. The men's balls are fuzzed up beyond belief, and you could see where that would make a difference in terms of aerodynamics. So I do remember Ash Barty's coach saying that she would never have a shot at winning the US Open because of those balls.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't believe that, but yeah, and it's interesting, Raducanu, would she have won with the other ball? Super interesting to think about. I do think it'll make a difference, and I think it probably does benefit someone like Swiatek, who will be able to access her spin and really control the ball like she likes to do.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And yeah, the Raducanu question is interesting, isn't it? But I think it'll definitely favour the players who are able to hit through the court more with more spin, as you said, and they have a heavier forehand or heavier ground strokes or serves, and it's going to be interesting to see now the more counter puncher players like say Fernandez and those types of players of that ilk like Kasatkina. How are they going to fare? Is it going to affect them as well in a negative way? Will they adapt? It'll be interesting to see, I guess, but. Yeah, I mean the other thing is the courts as well are slightly slower this year, and I guess that again favors someone like a Swiatek more than say like a Sabalenka or a Rybakina because well, from what I've seen anyway, they're all court players, but they tend to prefer the slower courts as well. And also for like a Pegula and Goff, like do you think they'll prefer a slightly slower hard court? They're two informed players as well.
I actually think that the fuzzed up ball and the slightly slower court could favor Pegula, and she's the one that I picked to win the tournament. She hits a very flat but very consistent ball. So, the few errors that she does make will be even further taken down by these conditions. And she is from New York, not Manhattan, Queens area, but she's from the state of New York. So I think the crowd will favor her. And this could be really, as long as she's, feeling good and not too tired from the long season, I think this could be a really good tournament for her.
Okay, I want to ask you then about that the Pagula pick. So, what you've kind of touched on a little bit, but what makes you think that she's going to have a fantastic tournament and go through to win? Like, is it something that you saw maybe in the win in Montreal, or like what have you seen a change in her potentially as well recently?
Yeah, she finally, cracked the Swiatek code. And that was the Cotton Eye Joe match. She had pretty much everything going against her, including luck. And she really kept her focus and knew what she had to do to win the match in 3 sets. I just like her game right now. It's nothing fancy, very workmanlike, flat ball hitter that is difficult for others to handle. Her ball is not quite as heavy as Swiatek's ball. She doesn't come in a lot. I would call her an aggressive flat ball baseliner, but almost equally good off both wings. And that's the type of style that plays well here on a slower or even a faster hard court.
Yeah, I feel like her serves improved as well. Have you noticed that? I feel like she's not, maybe not hitting it like necessarily quicker, but she's hitting her spots. I feel like she's getting some more free points off it compared to prior years. I feel like it has improved. Have you seen the same thing?
Yes, her percentages are up. Plus one percentages are up on the serve plus one. So it's that first shot after the serve. And I think if I remember correctly, slightly fewer double faults.
Yeah, so all heading in the right direction. So big tournament ahead is what you're picking, which is cool. What about the other? Well, there's quite a few Americans in the draw, but I think the other American that we're probably going to touch upon is Coco Gauff, and she's the winner of the other Master 1000 tournament in Cincinnati, and she also cracked the Swiatek code as well. I mean, it seems like there's been a little bit of fixing of the forehand. She's more confident on that side. She's been serving quite well, and we know how athletic she is, and she has incredible raw ability. And at 19 years of age, she seems to maybe be at that stage where she's maybe matured enough to make another big run like she did last year at the French Open. What do you think of how she's been playing, and also do you think Brad Gilbert has had a big effect on her? Because everyone keeps on talking about the Brad Gilbert effect, and he's coming to the camp, and we've actually had him on the channel before, actually, as well, one of our podcasts, and he's
How
obviously a very
was
knowledgeable
he?
guy. He's really good. I mean, he's a friend of Brad Faulkner, who used to do a podcast on here, and he came on, and he was really good. He was really good. I think he's very comfortable with the host. So, and he's clearly incredibly intelligent when it comes to the sport, and knows he's just got incredible depth and knowledge on the game, and has a very unique way of thinking. So it's always I find it really interesting to listen to him, or even just read his tweets sometimes as well. He has very interesting insights. But what do you think? Do you think it has had a positive effect on Coco, and like how have you seen her game overall, generally speaking?
Absolutely. His whole approach is something that I think, I mean, this may be a little controversial, but men and women, generally speaking, tend to have different processes. It's just biological. And I find that women are often very critical of themselves, even during a point. So they can be in a rally or an exchange and be critical of the way they hit the ball. And that little millisecond thought of, I didn't get all that forehand, or I didn't get my hips rotated, or, whatever, that critical judging of the shot you just hit can produce a millisecond delay in recovery and getting ready for the next shot. So Gilbert's whole approach, I think, would be extremely beneficial to women, and just getting them to let go of the shot they just hit and letting go of any processing, because it's winning ugly. And it's the realization that most of the shots that you hit are not going to be perfect, and you've got to let that go and recover and anticipate and get ready for the next shot. So he's probably worked with her on these concepts on her forehand, which is not, technically perfect. But it really doesn't matter, because most people who play tennis don't have perfect shots. And even if they do, they don't hit that perfect shot every single time. So the whole mentality of winning ugly, I think, could benefit anyone, but most especially Coco Gauff. And my whole bummer thing is that she ended up in the same quarter with Swiatek again, because they've played 8 times, and Coco's only beat her once, which was in Cincinnati, just last week, and it was a close match. So it's kind of a bummer that she lands in Iga's quarter once again.
Yeah, no, I agree, and yeah, the winning ugly concept is, I think it's really interesting because with Coco, I think I'm assuming she's now trusting the process more in terms of her coaching, and she's thinking about the next point. She's not. It doesn't seem like, as you said, she's maybe dwelling on the mistakes that she's making, and she's kind of moving forward, which is great. But she's got all of these. She's got all these interesting little intricacies to her game that I think when they come together, are really dangerous. And she's obviously got some of the big weapons as well, like the serve. I'm assuming you're not picking her to go further than the quarterfinals then, by the sounds of it, because Swiatek, is that kind of what you're looking at when you look to the draw?
I very hesitantly ended up picking Iga to come through, and it's not because Coco isn't great and isn't on to something with Brad Gilbert. That, if it comes to them, it could go either way.
Hmm.
But I think it's Iga. I think she's gonna want to get that back.
Yeah.
She's gonna be annoyed with herself. She's a very competitive person, and I could tell that her hard court season, which hasn't gone, perfectly, is weighing on her.
Yeah, no, and she's the type of player to adapt, isn't she? And she'll learn from a
Mhm.
defeat, and she'll try and adapt. Although, I guess you could argue someone like Rybakina has been able to do it, but I feel like that's a different head-to-head, because with Coco, she's always beaten her, and then it's a recent loss, and as you said, very, very close. So I've actually gone. People will know who've watched my preview video. I went extremely left field when I was picking all my matches, and I ended up having Coco Gauff as winning the whole tournament. So
Oh,
she's got
yeah.
a really tough route. But
That's
I
not
actually
a
had
bad pick.
well, people might laugh when they see it. I had Coco Gauff and Jabeur in the final, which was like really, really left field because Jabeur also has been struggling with injuries as well recently and hasn't had like the best year. But I was like the Wimbledon final and looking at the draws and looking at the matchups. But we'll see if that happens. I think I could be very, very wrong
Oh,
as well.
that would be fantastic. I mean, what a fantastic final that would be. I hope that you're right.
And the thing is, it'll be great because both players have made at least one Grand Slam final, so they'd kind of one of them would be happy, one of them would be crying probably again, like they like you would, like anyone would if you lose
Yeah.
a Grand Slam final after losing it. But
Look, Carlos even cried when he lost
I
Cincinnati.
know, yeah, I was a bit
So,
surprised by it, but it was a really, I mean, I guess it was an emotional match and how,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, he had a match point and everything as well. That was an incredible match to watch. So Swiatek's chances then. So you've obviously picked Pegula to win. What do you think of Swiatek's draw? I think it's pretty straightforward until the Coco Golf Course final. I've
Yes.
seen some people saying that it's quite difficult, but I guess it's all relative on who the player is, right? Because Swiatek, her style, and like I've got her potential route in front of me because it's when I say potential, just this is assuming all the seeds go through, which barely ever happens. But she's got Rebecca Peterson, the Swedish player in the first round, Seville, the Australian Cocciaretto, Kudermetova, Goff, Rybakina, and Sabalenka. So that's like her route. Um, I think it's a pretty good route. And what were your thoughts when you saw it?
Yeah, that's why I picked her to come through, and it
Yeah,
really came down to analyzing Iga versus Coco and just look at the record. I mean,
yeah,
and the number of straight sets. Coco was having a trouble getting even a set off of her, but she got it. She figured it out, but now the pressure's really going to be on Coco to repeat that, and it's just so unfair. She keeps ending up in near Swiatek in these big tournaments.
yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, she is. She tends to be in that quarter, doesn't she? Or half at least with
Mhm.
Iga. Uh, another player that I think has got a pretty good draw is Sabalenka. And obviously, she's the Australian Open champion as well. And I personally think, if we're looking at results, she's probably been the most, which is very ironic to say because she's always been known as a very inconsistent player. But I think she's probably had the most consistent season in terms of results. She's made a lot of semi-finals and quarterfinals, and she hasn't won a huge amount of tournaments. But I think she's not had many huge upsets in the first or second rounds of tournaments, and her route is pretty good. I think like Zanevska, Blinkova, Pliskova, who is like would have been dangerous on maybe grass, but I don't feel like she's been in great form recently. Kasatkina, who I hate to say it if you're a Kasatkina fan, but I've seen her draw, and I don't know if she's even going to make it that far. Jabeur, Pegula, Swiatek. I mean, what are your thoughts on her chances and kind of potentially how well she could do at the tournament? Because her form's been a little bit strange in the last couple of weeks as well in Cincinnati and in Montreal. She hasn't been playing the best.
I'm just looking at her draw right now to remind myself, one of the easier quarters for
Yeah.
sure. The ball could affect her in a negative way,
Okay.
because, she's the big server, and
Mm.
if you don't have the ball just, rocketing off her racket, that could be a thing. If she gets frustrated, she tends to rack up the double faults. I'm just like in awe of Kaya Kanepi. She's one of my favorite players. She just keeps
I
going.
know. She must be like
Uh,
39 now. I think 30, 39. Just incredible.
she's amazing. She's got Streetsova in the first. She could, she's usually good for a round or two in these
Yeah,
things.
she is.
Yeah, I really like Sabalenka's draw, but
Yeah,
it'll get sticky for her in the maybe the semifinals.
yeah. Which is where she'd play Pagula, which obviously you're picking Pagula to
Hmm.
win that. And then one of the players I think's got the I think she's got a horrific draw is Alina Rybakina, who had a
Hmm.
really bad Wimbledon draw, and she seems to get absolutely zero luck when it comes to draws. Her draw and her first round is Marta Kostyuk, who's been playing some pretty good tennis recently.
Hmm.
Then she's got Tomjanovic potentially, who had a really deep run last year. Castello, who's pretty steady, I would
Mhm.
say, like she's pretty good. Azarenka or Bencic, fourth round, and then she's got Mukova or Sakari, and then Swiatek in a semi and Sabalenka in the final, plus the potential injury concerns after retiring against Jasmine Paolini in Cincinnati. I mean, what are your thoughts on her chances? Because I mean, she has a shocker of a draw, in my opinion.
Yeah, she's got of the top 4 seeds, she's got the toughest draw. I think I did pick her to come through her quarter only because I was having a hard time picking anyone else unless I picked Mukova. I'm already confused. Yeah, this is definitely the toughest section of the women's draw
Yeah,
for sure. And it'll be interesting to see how the new ball affects her. I think she'll do pretty well with it, actually. But you're right. Her first round match against Kostyuk is a
bananas
tough
again.
one
Yeah,
because those are players of similar styles and
mm,
builds. Rybakina is usually just a little bit better, but we'll see.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, yeah, she's got a tough route, and I guess it depends because you'd think if she's carrying a little bit of a niggle as well, she can maybe build up some form with some players in the first or second rounds who are not, maybe as good a caliber, but she has to almost fight from the first round onwards, and she did so at Wimbledon to be fair, but then lost to Jabeur in the quarterfinals. It was almost like, okay, this is one step too far. But yeah, we'll see how she gets on as well. Um,
I
sorry, go
did
on.
pick Rybakina to come through. I thought about Muhova, but I picked Rybakina. So
Okay,
we'll
okay.
see.
And talking of injury concerns, there on Jabeur. I mean, I picked her to replicate her US Open run last year. She's got Sabalenka quarterfinal potentially as well, which would be a replay of Cincinnati last week. But I think she was kind of a bit of a niggle, and she beat her in Wimbledon. You could say as well, different surface. She's got an easier route than Wimbledon though. Her route in Wimbledon was her. I think she played. I think it was 4 Grand Slam champions back to back because Andreescu, Kvitova, Rybakina, Sabalenka. And she beat all of them, and then obviously she lost to Vondrousova in the final. And we haven't spoken since then. But I mean, it was just like her level just kind of just dropped into an abyss in that final, which is just such a shame because it's such a good run as well. Um, so I have 2 questions: is one, do you think she's going to be able to replicate it because she's actually got an easier route, or could that be potentially a bad thing because she's arguably a better underdog than favorite from what we've seen as well in the last couple of years?
I think it all hinges on her health.
Hmm.
Do we know what's wrong with her? She's always got something.
I don't know. I mean, she has multiple niggles, doesn't she? I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
something seems to rear its head, but
I do
um,
think the slower conditions and the fuzzier ball is good for her
yeah,
because she likes to vary up her spins and vary up her shots and stuff. She can either drive the ball or she can drop shot or, just spin from every angle. So that could actually be
yeah,
good for her. She could find that favorable. I like
yeah.
your pick.
Do you-
Yeah, I
so,
want to change mine.
so her foot was taped up apparently tightly by the
Okay. Oh,
physio
that's
during the
right. Foot.
Sabalenka.
That's right.
Um, yeah, so I guess we'll see. Depending, I mean, the thing is, the foot's that's a real niggly one as well because there's nothing
Yeah.
really. It's just you. What can you do? You're walking around all the time as well. You're
Yeah.
always using it. So you're a
Every
tennis
split
player.
step. Yeah, every
Yeah,
split step hurts or bothers you.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And I'm assuming she's not going to go down the Rafa Nadal. I'm going to inject myself into my foot and then play with a foot that I can't even feel.
I wonder if it's like
Ridiculous.
a very common injury for tennis players is plantar fasciitis, which I've had, but
Yeah.
that's the type of injury that typically doesn't bother you as much, it in the moment, but it's after that's really bad. I'm gonna research that,
Okay.
see
Well,
exactly
what
what
is
she's
is that?
dealing
Is
with.
that like the bridge of your foot or like
It's
what?
like the bottom, it can be anywhere from the Achilles through the heel down through the arch. It can be the little tears can be anywhere in
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I've definitely had that, or I'm probably carrying an injury now like that. I feel like
Yeah.
I've always got something like there. My Achilles down to my heels. It's probably just by playing a lot of tennis, to be honest with you. But yeah, Yeah, I'll research that now. Thank you, Amy. I'm gonna
Me too.
research.
Me too.
Okay, in terms of like others to look out for, I mean, do you have any dark horse or ones to watch in the WTA tour before we move on to the men?
I think Murova will be one. Now I'm kind of kicking myself maybe for not picking her because I kind of Zachary is always, she's not really a dark horse, but she's always one to watch. Um, I don't know. I just have this feeling that the women's draw never does this, but I just have this feeling that this one's gonna go a little more to chalk, as we say, a little more the seeds holding up. Just a feeling.
Hmm. Oh, okay. I like it. It's almost a bold prediction to say that because US
Yeah,
Open is
right.
open
Seeds
in the
never
past.
hold.
I know. It's funny because I was doing my picks and it's almost a little bit annoying because of the qualifying has been a lot of rain, etc. as well. And I was thinking, I'm just assuming that the seeded player is going to come through against qualifiers. But there's always going to be at least one or two qualifiers that cause upsets and they make a run, and next thing you know, there's a qualifier in the semi-finals. So you just never know.
Maybe Ostapenko, the heavier ball will help
Mm,
her keep the ball inside the lines a little more. I don't know.
yeah, no,
She's
no,
near Iga,
she
so
is.
maybe not.
I actually had. She's got someone tough in the first round.
Paulini? Is it
Yeah,
Paulini?
yes, and I picked Pauline to win. Actually,
Okay.
that was a big call for me. But she's been playing quite well, Pauline. I like her style, so maybe a bit bias involved, to be honest. But yeah, but yeah. Well, the Ostapenko is great as well. I mean, she's exciting, isn't she? You
Yes.
definitely can't say that she's boring to watch. Uh,
Right. Right.
so your pick is Pegula, and then if you had
Yes.
to pick one dark horse, who would it be then?
Um, Probably Jabeur, who would be a dark horse because after what happened at Wimbledon, nobody really expects anything of her in the closing arguments, and she's hurt. So there's my dark horse.
Hmm. I like it. I like it. And yeah, my finalist. So let's move on to the men's. So the ATP side, I mean, I'm just going to ask, and I think I know the answer, but is it on paper a two-horse race between Djokovic and Alcaraz with a draw coming out? I mean, obviously Alcaraz, I would argue, has a harder draw than Djokovic, but again, I do think it's relative in the sense that Djokovic has some very favorable head-to-heads with some people in his quarter and his half. But are they the
It's
clear
hard
favourites?
to find a player that he doesn't have a favorable
And
head-to-head
that's the
with.
thing, right? So it's almost like it's a bit you feel a bit it's a bit unfair to then say he's got an easy draw, but then in actual reality it is because there's only really maybe two or three players that I would say have a real chance of beating him unless it's a massive upset, which could happen, but it just doesn't seem to happen much with him nowadays. With players that are unknown players, or players that are maybe not as higher ranked. But yeah, is it on paper two horse race between Djokovic and Alcaraz, or are people missing something? I know there's a tier below where people are going to be talking about them, but surely they're on a tier of their own going into it.
To me, they are. Let's not overthink it. These are the
Yeah.
two best players in the world. That being said, there is one little hitch. I do think that if I'm being completely objective, and I do Djokovic fans, I do call these as I see them. I think Novak has a favorable draw for
Yeah,
him.
for him, yeah.
Alcaraz has Sinner
And the
in his
quarters,
quarter,
that's a shocker. Yeah,
and
yeah, that's a bad
and
one.
that is it's a tougher matchup for Carlitos.
Yeah,
Their series is 3-3, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. It is. It is.
They played at last year's US Open. It was an epic.
Yeah, Sinner had a match point. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. But Carlitos came away with it, obviously, and then won the tournament. So that presents a significant challenge for him, but it's one that he relishes. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah. You know what? You're right, I think, because Djokovic, I was looking at and I was thinking, okay, who would Djokovic not want to have in his quarter or even his half? And I was thinking he wouldn't want Medvedev because even though he's got a favorable head to head, Medvedev is just like he hates playing against him. He always takes him into deep water, similar to Alcaraz, and slightly different style. But he can, he'll stick with Djokovic. He'll make it physical, and especially if the courts are slightly slower with these balls as well. You think, okay, maybe like Medvedev can cause issues and beat Djokovic last time they played at the US Open. So you could say that. And then also I was thinking, obviously Alcaraz, but Alcaraz he's always going to be in a different half. Sinner, I didn't really think. I mean, I just think even though I was thinking maybe on a hard court it would be different, but after the Wimbledon loss, I feel like mentally there's a massive edge now for Djokovic. And then the other player I was thinking was Rune, and Rune is in his half. And I was thinking Rune, and I think personally Rune is a player that neither player stylistically wants to see, because I think he's got a favorable head-to-head with Alcaraz. I think it's 2-1. I could be wrong. And with Djokovic, he also has a good head-to-head with Djokovic, and he hasn't been in great form. I think he's also carrying a slight niggle, but if he makes it that far, it means that he's probably healthy and fit, playing some decent tennis. And I don't think that's a player that either player would want to see. So I feel like both players have got. Well, I think both players have got one player that they really don't want to see. My question to you, Amy, is can Medvedev cause issues against Alcaraz if they were to play on a hard court at the US Open? Because the recent head-to-head tells me no, but is there something that maybe I'm missing with that one?
For me, Medvedev is the mystery
Mm.
because he's labeled himself a hard court specialist, and he did not have a good hard court run up to the US Open.
Mm.
Um, I have a feeling he's going to turn things around. He likes the New York energy. He likes to, give it to the fans. He's a former champion here. I have this feeling that he's going to bust out, knowing that, this is the end of the American hard courts. This is the ultimate. He does have, I believe he has Demonar in his
Yeah.
area, and he lost to him recently.
Mm.
So that's a little tricky.
Yeah. In Toronto, I think it would be. Well, yeah, Toronto, I think. 'Cause he made the final then.
So yeah, so I don't know. Medvedev is the mystery here. If he plays Carlos, like you said, it probably means that he's been playing well and he's finding something. So I think we could at least hope for a 4 or 5 set match in that
Mm.
one.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if Medvedev comes up against Alcaraz, whether he's going to start tinkering with his return position again, or whether he's just going to say, no, I'm just going to, you know what, I'm going to stick to it. And if he serve volleys me or serve drop shots me, then you know what, that's fine, but I need to find a way around it.
Mhm.
But it's so intriguing, that matchup, and it just seems like Alcaraz is able to figure out Medvedev. So I'm intrigued to see whether he can adapt himself, because it would be strange to see the same thing play out. And maybe it's just a bad start and that happens, I guess, sometimes. But at this level, you normally think that the players would adjust their tactics in some way to combat the opponent rather than being stubborn. So I guess we'll see how that goes. Um, for Djokovic, then, I mean, as you said, I think he's definitely got an easier draw. I've got his road to the final kind of list in front of me, and the US Open did it, so kudos to them for putting these out as well. But he's got Muller in the first round, Zapata Morales in the second, third round of Jair, fourth round. I mean, I don't think he's going to. I hate to say that he's not going to meet him, but I don't think he's going to meet Auger-Aliassime in the fourth round, given the current form of the Canadian. Quarterfinal, Tsitsipas, semi-final of Rune, final of Alcaraz. I mean, apart from the final, I mean, what was your pick? I mean, do you see him
I
having trouble
picked
with any of those
Djokovic.
players? You
I
picked
picked
himself.
Djokovic to win the
Okay.
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
Runa has a back problem, and the coaches will like exaggerate it and overstate it, but I think Muratoglu said it was a paralyzing injury.
Okay.
So he kind of sold me on that, and
Okay.
I didn't pick him to go very far,
Hmm.
but you never know. Maybe it's kind of a red
Yeah.
herring.
So it looks like up until the final, there's not really anyone that can actually challenge him apart from
Right.
obviously if Bruno's fit.
Right.
What about Tsitsipas? I'm going to ask you. Does he have any chance? Has he been playing well enough at all, Amy? Can he, with the with the courts being slightly slower. And I always find it really weird that Tsitsipas hasn't played well at the US Open and he's played better at the Australian Open, because I would imagine that he would prefer a slightly slower hard court given his backhand and given that he has more time to run around the backhand and utilize his forehand more. But he's always done better at the Australian Open. Like, he made the final this season, made loads of semi-finals. US Open, he tends not to. I don't know whether it's just because of the back end of the year. But what are your thoughts on his form and his chances?
Um, Tsitsipas has a rough first round opponent in Raonic.
He does, yeah.
Tsitsipas have been having his season of love. So that's, when that happens, it can actually have an effect on the brain, and things that were important to you just aren't as important now. So that's fine. I haven't picked him to go very far. And then, yeah, so was this I'm just looking at the quarter here. Um, I have a surprise pick in one
Oh,
of
who
the
is it?
quarters. Tommy Paul.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. To be fair, that's understandable. He's been playing some really good tennis, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was between him and Tiafo.
Ooh,
And I ended up picking Tommy just because of how well he's been playing, how consistently he's been playing, and his good performances against top 10 players.
yeah,
So he's kind of my dark horse and my outlier pick to come through.
yeah. What do you think about his game that is like stands out to you in terms of Tommy Paul's game? Because there'll be some people watching who maybe aren't as familiar with him, but he clearly has something about him, and he always seems to cause Alcaraz fits when they play against each other as well. Alcaraz, I don't know whether he hates playing against him, or as you said, he might relish the opportunity of playing against him. But he seems to have like a pretty well-rounded game, and it's just he's never really made the big runs. What are your thoughts on his game and how he's been playing? Like, what does he bring to the table?
Incredible speed. He's one of the fastest and best movers on the ATP tour. Good forehand, really. He's almost like Alcaraz light in a lot of ways. His serve is serviceable, but not elite. Um, he's just anticipation for days and good net skills as well when he chooses to employ them. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's got really good hands at the net, and his transition game is great. I was talking to my coach actually at my local club, and he was saying he's got great transition game. That's what, and he causes Alcaraz issues, and he's able to match him physically in that sense as well. But I was watching his serve as well, and I think his serve is a little bit underrated. I was watching him serve against Alcaraz. Maybe that was him serving out of his skin, but I mean, he was hitting the 130 mark, and then he was throwing in like a massive kick serve from the ad side, which was like 95 miles per hour. But he was acing Alcaraz sometimes from that side, and I was like, okay, he's got the variation and hitting his spots. And I was like, if he can serve like this, and then we know what else he's got to his game, then he should have a good chance of going deep in these tournaments, and at least be disrupting anyway. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing him actually at the US Open. And the crowd will be behind him as well. So
Hmm.
hopefully he can utilize that, because I feel some players, they then add more pressure to themselves, and it's a negative effect that it has on them. But other players, they relish it and they kind of channel it into positive energy. So we'll see. But Alcaraz, where did you have Alcaraz ending up then, in the final with Djokovic, or did you have him falling earlier to stay
I
similar in the
have him
quarters?
going to the final with Djokovic.
Okay.
Let's not overthink.
I had the same, to be fair. I had the same, but I went for Alcaraz to beat Djokovic. I was umming and ahhing when I was doing it, and I was like, oh, who do I go for? And I do think Djokovic is the favorite, even going into that. If they make both make the final, I still think Djokovic will be the favorite. But I don't know, just something about it makes me think, oh, maybe she's going to keep on seesawing. But I almost feel that this is, yeah, fine. Djokovic won Cincinnati, but this is the one he's going to really want, like, to get revenge in a slam final. Because if Alcaraz wins two slam finals in a row, you're kind of thinking, well, in best of five, then is there like a pattern here, maybe, even though it's only two matches. So hopefully we get it, because I think it'll be a great match. And obviously no offense at all intended to any other players, but I think that's the matchup that obviously everyone's excited about at the moment. Um, What do you think of Sinner's chances? Because he won Toronto. Do you think he has a chance against Alcaraz in the quarterfinals, obviously the head-to-head as well? And if he were to be Alcaraz, do you think he then has a good chance of going on to potentially win the thing? And obviously, he'd probably have to contend with Djokovic, but with the confidence of beating someone like an Alcaraz as well, could it put him in good stead to go on and potentially win a maiden slam after winning his maiden Masters 1000 title?
This is a player that, for me, is so beautiful to watch because of his pure ball striking. And I want to become a big fan of his and, see him do well, but then I'll see a comment from him in the media that's like he said, something along the lines of, "It's important just to live life too and not put everything into tennis." And I'm like, that's true. It's totally true. But is that the winner's mentality? And then I saw him make another comment recently. Oh, he said it's okay to lose. It's okay to lose if you lose the right way. And you play, I play. Is that really the right mentality? Is that like a champion's mentality? So I don't know. I kind of question his thought processes, I guess, and I rarely end up picking him for these things.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think sometimes comments can be made, and I don't know whether players is taken out of context sometimes, it's reported or translation as well. But I think I have heard similar comments, and it does make you think a little bit about like where his head's at from a mental aspect.
He could use a Brad Gilbert.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know he's got Cahill and that's
yeah.
going really well, but it's almost like, yeah, everybody could use a Brad Gilbert.
Yeah, exactly. No, and the other thing is the physical aspect, and he's had issues with like blisters and cramping and injuries, and he seems injury free at the moment. And I almost feel like losing the first round of Cincinnati was a blessing in disguise because after winning Montreal, I was sorry Toronto even because they switched this year. Um, Going into Cincinnati, I was thinking, oh, if he then goes deep again, he might potentially pick up an injury, and so he's
Mhm.
had a whole week off, or no need, well, it'll be 2 weeks actually, before the US Open. I feel that's actually a good thing for him, so he'll go into hopefully fresh and like with no, uh, yeah, with no injuries, hopefully. In terms of, I mean the court's being a bit slower because you're saying about the final Djokovic Alcaraz. Why did you pick Djokovic over Alcaraz out of interest?
Alcaraz has not proven that he can be cramp free in a tense environment outside of the cool confines of Wimbledon. So, plus it's just, it's Djokovic until proven otherwise. He's gonna be motivated, and I think he ripping off the shirt, he's proven that he is motivated, but he's gonna be motivated to take back the mantle. So it's either, he's 36 years old and Alcaraz won Wimbledon, and then is he really gonna let Alcaraz win another one? And then the baton may be passed because, he'll be looking back, or is he gonna say, "Not yet"? And just knowing Djokovic, I feel like he's gonna say, "Not yet." In terms of tactics and the slowness of the court and everything else, they're just so even. They are both all court, all different speed court, slow court, fast court, clay court, grass, whatever, hard court, players, all surface, all weather players. So it's too early and it's too close to see the different tactical advantages. And by the way, they're both really good at coming forward. Novak is constantly tweaking and he is even improving in this area of the game. So that's why I picked him.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I think your point on Djokovic coming forward, like he's definitely, and I feel like having even Ivanisevic, sorry, even in his team has been a massive plus for not just his serve, which we know has improved, but more his transition game and his volleys, his net play. I feel like in the past, like thinking about Djokovic serving and volleying wouldn't even be in your mind, like you wouldn't even think about it. But now he'll do it, and he'll do it against Alcaraz, and he'll be confident to do it. I've even seen him doing it on second serve. We know Alcaraz likes coming forward anyway. But yeah, as you said, they're all court players, and I think the fact that they are, or it looks so even when they play, and they can play on all different types of surfaces in different ways. It makes this rivalry really unique because this might be a bit of a bold statement to say, but I absolutely love the big three. And obviously, you have a podcast dedicated to them. But I do feel like, apart from maybe like a period when Nadal and Djokovic were quite young and they kind of just hit each other at the right time at the peaks, I want to say a hard court or a grass court, they were pretty even. But as they got older, Nadal was like, okay, he's the clay giant. He's always going to win on clay when they play. And then Djokovic, if he was to play a Nadal on a hardcore grass court, you'd say Djokovic is the favorite. And obviously, I felt like maybe Federer and Djokovic was even. That was the one that might be similar because on grass and hard court they were more even potentially. And I feel like this has it's almost like I don't know who's going to win because actually you would have if you said to me in the past or like last year, okay, on clay who wins, I would have said probably Alcaraz maybe might win that one if he's going to win against Djokovic, probably clay, but on grass he'll lose to Djokovic. But then the opposite happened this year. I think that just shows that these guys are so incredibly good at being able to adapt, and they have a style that is like conducive to any surface. It also does. I'm going a bit of a tangent. It also does play into the theory of the surfaces being like the homogenization of surfaces.
Mhm.
But that's a discussion, I guess, for another day because we could probably talk about for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you think that's just a very like quick point on that? Do you think that's been the case though? Do you think that's why like these guys have had so much success? Like if you have a certain style, you're able to have success because the surfaces are becoming slightly more similar, or is it just like
Yeah.
you don't think
Even
so?
grass, even grass is slowed down. But again, we'll go back to our original point. Even minute differences
Yeah,
it's almost like with the serve and your toss. A toss that is this much different up at the height or the apex is going to equate to feet when it lands in
yeah,
the service box. So even these minute differences at this elite level will equate to big differences when they're actually meeting. Um, but I don't mind so much. I don't
mm.
mind the homogenization. Nadal is still the king of clay, so I think it's great. I'm good with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's at the moment it's great for the game. I don't know whether if it does get to a point where they're so similar that maybe they need to kind of then start to differentiate again. But at the moment, I think there is enough of a differential between them that we know. Okay, fine. There are still certain specialists on each surface, which is good. I think as soon as everyone starts playing the same way, that's when it becomes difficult. In terms of ones to watch, Amy, like, are there any other players that you think, are either your dark horses or players that we should look out for going to the tournament?
Uh, on the men's side, Ben Shelton, I like the Americans. I'm a huge fan of Chris Eubanks, huge, and he's from my hometown, like amazing. And I actually picked him as a dark horse at Wimbledon, and it ended up being true. But
Yeah,
he's not a dark horse for me here.
yeah,
I think he's still adjusting to the newfound fame, and he's making a lot of TV appearances, which is great because he's fantastic on TV. He's one of these natural broadcasters. But I don't see him super laser focused on tennis right now. Um, and Tiafo is a dark horse for me because I think he's made incremental improvement, and you just never know. He beat Nadal here last year.
yeah.
Uh,
He went toe to toe with Alcaraz as well, didn't he? I mean, that was an incredible match.
yes,
I remember calling
yes,
that.
yes. So there you go. Those are my
Yeah.
guys.
What do you think of Gael Monfils? I want to throw in a curveball. He's been playing some really good tennis recently. It's
Yeah.
very random resurgence, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, don't know what to think of him. My thought is maybe that he knows that he's near the end of his career, and so he's gonna just give it everything he's got and leave it all out there. And he's, knock on wood, he's able to play right now. He's not, physically hampered. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also shout out to John Isner, who's playing his last ever tournament.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm a big fan of his, both professionally and personally. He really is a nice guy. And I was looking through his US Open record yesterday, and I was reminded that he lost to Philip Kohlschreiber 3 times in the round of 32 at the US Open. And I was at least 2 of those matches, which were ended up being really good matches, but that's just kind of a funny little quirk in his long and storied career. So many tiebreakers played. Such a fantastic serve. A different style of tennis, like if you watch, say, 2 Spanish guys going at it on a clay court, it was kind of cool that you could watch Isner on a hard court and just see something totally different. So, congratulations to him.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have put it better myself. I think the thing is, you need different styles in the sport for it to
Mhm.
be exciting and to have those matchups. And I feel like, he has been incredible and arguably one of, if not the best server of all time. And he's just incredible. But also had like other aspects to his game as well. And of course, he'll always be remembered for that Nicholas Mahut longest match ever, 70-68 match at Wimbledon. But he's had some other really good highlights as well. So he'll definitely be missed for sure. But it's interesting, right? Because he's now finishing his career, and then we've got Ben Shelton coming through, who's I wouldn't say exactly the same, but he's kind of like similar-ish mold, and it's like it shows that it kind of things do tend to come almost kind of full circle in a way, which is quite cool. And he's a different brand, I guess, coming through, but he's exciting talent as well. All right, thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for being with us. Anything you want to touch upon before we wrap up?
No, just enjoy this unique moment in the sport where we have a 36-year-old GOAT, so-called, and a young phenom that really only comes around once every couple of generations. And they have built this rivalry at the end of Djokovic's career, which is highly entertaining. So enjoy it.
Yeah, it's very unique as well. You don't normally get such a big age gap like that, do you? In individual sports happening like this, so it's incredible to watch. And yeah, hopefully we get what would it be? It'd be yeah, another installment of that rivalry. But yeah, thank you so much, Amy. Really appreciated. Go and check out Amy on Twitter, or X as it's called now, Threads, and she's got some great articles there, and also 3 A Tennis Show as well, which is on YouTube and podcast platforms. If you haven't already, do like this video, subscribe if you're new as well, and hopefully Amy will have you back on again soon. It was definitely too long in between our last chat, so hopefully we can catch up again a bit sooner. But yeah, thank
Thank
you so much,
you.
guys.
Thank you.